What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Optimus Fantasy Football Dynasty Show. I am your host, Nate Palvo. As always, I am joined by my co-host, the one and only, the A-plus Dynasty coach, Mr. John Arrington. And tonight, guys, we have a guest, Mr. Alex Sir, Dynasty Football Key. You live drafted with me in Denver here this past weekend. I was thrilled to meet you. We had some base conversations on some fantasy football theory, but we're here today to talk Dynasty. Alex, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. Nate, John, hey, fellas, thanks for having me. It was a blast in Denver. I met so many great folks over there. 3 drafts at once. I haven't really had an experience like that before. That was my first Scott Fishbowl league, and it was just incredible. I'm not going to lie. I was using some of the other boards from the other leagues to, get a view where some of the values were sliding. But, man, really, it was just great. Good opportunity to donate to an awesome cause. Got to meet Scott Fish. So had a great time and looking forward to the show today, fellas.
Yeah, man, Scott Fishbowl, it really is kind of a one-of-a-kind experience, right? And if you've never done that sort of live draft, it's wild. You've got the Trophy Smack live boards. You've got the different auctions that we did at a lot of the live drafts. We were lucky enough to have the man himself, Scott Fish, show up at ours. You just never know. So if you've never heard of Scott Fishbowl and you are watching this now, check out the link in the show description. Make sure you get over to scottfishbowl.com and get signed up for next year. That is the 2025 season. But also check out Underdog Fantasy. They have a bunch of satellite tournaments that you can win an entry into Scott Fishbowl next year. It's $5 and it goes towards fantasycares.org. You guys, it's for the kids. It is such a phenomenal cause. Even if you're not a big-time fantasy football player, you're watching us, you're trying to get an edge up on your cousin in your family league. You've watched maybe 1 or 2 games a week. Check out Scott Fishbowl because, you guys, you could play in a league with people like Tom Everett Scott. Why I can't think of his name right now because he's one of my favorite actors. He was in Psych. James Roday Rodriguez, that is the other one. These are people that you can play with. The bass player from REM is in these tournaments. So kind of a cross section of people you can play. Check it out, guys. It's for a phenomenal cause. But we're not here for Scott Fishbowl. We've done a ton of Scott Fishbowl content. The drafts are rolling. It's dynasty season, guys. It is time to get those rosters in shape. And we have a whole new class of rookies who, unless you're like John and you play Devy fantasy football, you don't know a lot about a lot of these players. So we are here to help you. We're going to go through some of the top prospects that will be relevant. You might want to actually start and play this season, or guys that you want to be acquiring on your rosters right now. We're going to assess the Dynasty rankings on Fantasy Pros. That is going to be our base for this conversation. I am very excited to get this going. But first, before we get into that, Alex, I want you to kind of point everybody to where they can find you here on YouTube and on socials as well.
Thank you. You can find me on YouTube at Dynasty Football Key and Twitter at Dynasty F Key. That's where I'll be at. Also got a Discord and Patreon if you want to support over there. So I really appreciate you guys having me on. But just started the podcast this year. Haven't even gotten to do any in-season content yet. So been talking a lot of strategy for the most part, a lot of rookies, a lot of film scouting, and it's been an absolute grind. So big respect to you guys and everyone who's been doing this for a while, man. But it's been fun. Love the game. So ready for the season.
Yeah, that's awesome, guys. And make sure that you check out Alex's channel on YouTube, Dynasty Football Key. I was peopling a bit of it earlier today, and I'll admit I'm really bad at consuming content across the board. I'm doing so much of this, it's hard. But I love what I saw on your channel, guys. It's a really, really good subscription, so make sure you check it out. And with that, guys, let's get into some Dynasty rookies. It is of note that theme song does get us banned in Belarus and Russia. It is the only place that Lamar Kendrick track is not fair use. So if you're a Russian or Belarusian fantasy football player, guys, I'm sorry. You're going to have to get a VPN to watch us. Before we get into these rookies, guys, I want to just make some notes here. Coming up next Monday, we will have our mock draft show at 8 p.m. Eastern right here on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, wherever you are watching us now. And the most exciting part of all this, optimusfantasy.com is live, guys. We have articles, links to all of our YouTube, and pre-sale for our GOAT premium subscription package right now. 60% off for the entirety of the 2024 season. Sign up for that before August 5th, and we will get you set up. We start billing September 2nd, so you have a minute as things filter in to kind of check out what we've got going on. But we're not here for that, guys. We're here for rookies. And we've got to start with the quarterbacks. The first position, the most important position, especially in Superflex, which is a league I think we've all kind of gravitated to. We're mostly playing in Superflex format at this point. This was an interesting draft. We had 6 guys come off of the board in the first round. And the guy who was ranked lowest of all of these quarterbacks was actually the third one off of the board in this draft. What do you guys? Okay, so first I'm going to ask you, Alex, out of these quarterbacks, Caleb Williams, he's obviously the QB1, but then you've got Daniels, May, and McCarthy kind of stacked there between 12 and 19. How do you feel about this for dynasty purposes? Are you okay with May being ahead of Drake McCarthy? Are you okay with where Daniels is?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's a historic class. 6 QBs in the first round for the first time ever. And so May, he was actually, QB3, and I really like the rushing upside that he has. So for me, I'm fine with May above him or above the rest of the guys behind him. I do see a little bit of rushing with McCarthy actually kind of hidden there, but he didn't get a chance to showcase too much of what he did with that championship Michigan team. So there's still a little unknown there. I do feel like I got a bit of a good feel for May, especially with not as an amazing supporting cast around him. So for me, I'm actually good with May, and I've continued taking him as my QB3. These other guys I really believe in. At Penix, he was, I believe, the 4th QB to go. I like what he can do, but even when he gets a shot, there's not a lot of rushing upside. So there's a lot of talent potentially there for some of these guys, but I'm good with the top 3 being more that I can lean on for rushing potential.
Okay, now you mentioned J.J. McCarthy here, and John, I want to ask you a question about J.J. McCarthy. In talking to Scott Fish on Saturday, one of the things that we discussed was J.J. McCarthy versus Sam Darnold. It's the belief of a lot of Vikings fans that we're probably going to see Darnold start at least the first half of the season. And given this cast of characters he has, if Darnold is good enough, McCarthy may not see the field this season. Does that push him down rankings for you, or are you okay with him still sitting at 19 knowing he may not play this season?
Well, first of all, I think that was the longest I've ever gone without talking in my entire life. So don't ever do that to me again. I wanted to say from the beginning that I actually literally just got done watching the Psych 2 right before we jumped on here, and it was just a complete coincidence. It had nothing to do with anything or Scott Fishbowl or whatever. And Scamper said that he's drafting with James Rodriguez and Tom Everett Scott, so that's pretty cool. But yeah. To answer your question, I love Drake May. JJ McCarthy is going to be a stud, but it's probably going to take time. So I really have no issues with him not starting week 1, not starting week 2, not starting week 7. That really doesn't bother me. I don't think that Sam Darnold's good enough to keep the job, but I know coaches are always going to lean experience and things like that. And so I don't think even if it takes 8 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever, I don't really think I'm looking at that and saying, oh, that's because JJ McCarthy's not ready or he's not good or whatever you may say. Sometimes these coaches just want to hold on and just, give them as much time as possible. And we've seen a lot of times that it's probably better if they just get thrown into the fire more than not. But that doesn't mean coaches want to actually do it. So no, it doesn't bother me. I love him at QB 19. I think he's going to be a stud. I think he's going to be, long-term franchise QB. Obviously, he has the pieces around him and everything like that. It's just a matter of when he actually gets on the field.
Well, I think that's the key, is that he has the pieces. So he's going to get on the field, right? They got him at 11. They're going to keep the guy. He's going to start. If he doesn't start this season, that's a 1-year Sam Darnold bridge year, and that's what we're going to get. I still think QB 19 is fine for me. I do think we see Darnold for the entire season. I really don't believe that we see J.J. McCarthy start this season, because I think that Darnold is good enough. If you look at his season in Carolina, those first 4 games when he had Christian McCaffrey in an actual viable running game, he was, I think, overall QB2, over that first 4-game stretch. Now he's got Aaron Jones, who gives him something he didn't have other places he started aside from those 4 games. Let him play the entire season. Let this Minnesota team go off. Let these guys feel good. Let McCarthy get comfortable with the NFL. Let him sit behind Darnold. Then next year, it's a different story. You could have a Patrick Mahomes season out of McCarthy. Alex, I see you kind of tilting your head here. I feel like you've got something to say here about JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, man. So, hey, I agree, man. As far as John was saying, I think he's going to be a stud. The thing is, I've been saying the same thing with Sam Darnold. I mean, it really was, he needed some help in Carolina. He was playing well. We were all there. We saw that he was playing well with that team. And I would say the team he's on now is much better. It's hard to just imagine a world, though, where they don't get JJ McCarthy out there sooner than later. I don't have that type of answer when that's going to be. But if Darnold gets any injury, it's probably over for Darnold. You know, if anything happens where there's just a rut in a bad game, then I think they're throwing JJ McCarthy in there. They've done some improvements to the defense. You know, they had another first-round pick in Dallas Turner. They got him at 17. Still a rookie. They added, you know, some other help, some signings. I believe the guy's name was Gerard Green. Yep. Something like that. And, you know, had some other guys they lost. But otherwise, I just can't see this team being good enough on defense to just keep them in every single game. So there's going to be opportunities for JJ to get in. It's just going to be a comfortability thing. I think they will start Darnold week 1. But McCarthy's got to get in there, man. And I've, you know, I have some other things to say on McCarthy, but I can leave it at that for now.
I'm good with leaving it at that. We've talked about that. Michigan, I don't like Michigan, Alex, just so you know. I have never, and now
we see.
And now I'm part of an Ohio State family, so I dislike them even more. But I do like JJ McCarthy at the NFL level. I think he's going to be very good in Minnesota. Now, a player that, John, you and I could agree on, because we were at the Senior Bowl together and we watched these two quarterbacks together, Michael Penix and Bo Nix. Neither one of us had either graded as first-round talents. We figured these are guys that should be going 4th, 5th round. These are backup-level quarterbacks. Yeah, 3rd round at the very earliest. Yet here we are. These are guys who went within the first 15 picks of the draft. Out of these two guys, John, who ends up having the most successful career? Right now, Nix is slotted QB 25, Michael Penix QB 27.
I mean, honestly, I would say it's probably going to be Penix that would have the better career because while I just got done saying I think that these quarterbacks should get thrown to the fire, it's when they are actually talented. And so, like, Bo Nix is going to get thrown to the fire, and he's not talented enough to actually be able, to compete and do what he needs to do. And so he's going to fall flat on his face, unfortunately. I'm not, like, rooting against him or anything. I'm just trying to, at least I'm giving my opinion. But Michael Penix Jr. is going to have time. Like, he's going to wait it out, and I'm assuming that Kirk Cousins is healthy and all that kind of stuff. He's going to have time to learn from a long-term NFL quarterback and all that. And I get he's older, but he's not that old. He's going to be fine. At some point, Michael Penix Jr. will probably step on the field and will probably do like a Jake Browning level performance, like something to that effect where people start going, wait, do we even need Joe Burrow? And then like 3 weeks later you go, we definitely need Joe Burrow. Yeah. So like, I think we'll see something like that with Michael Penix Jr. And honestly, going back to the original thought, I think that's what you guys are seeing with Sam Darnold. You're like, oh man, he looks so good for those 3 or 4 games or whatever. The high-end backup quarterbacks like a Michael Penix Jr., even like a Bo Nix, can put that kind of stuff together. They can put 3 or 4 games in a row. Look at last year with the Pasternaut. Like he looked amazing. Sure. And then all of a sudden he goes to Minnesota and just falls flat on his face. It's terrible.
It's Case Keenum. He had that great season coming in, replacing, I believe it was Cousins in Minnesota. They go to the NFC Championship, ultimately lose. But then he goes to Denver, gets a start on guys. Terrible, right? Yep. Absolutely awful. And I think that's going to be Bo Nix from day one, where this offense is going to chew him up and spit him out because it's not a good offense yet. And he's not ready for that smoke. I just don't think he is.
I made a point to say that I really think that Zach Wilson's going to see the field at some point. And this is not me saying that Zach Wilson is a good quarterback. This is me saying that Bo Nix is not a good quarterback.
Right. Bo Nix I would rather have Michael Penix in Denver starting today than I would Bo Nix. And it's little things. It's little things like the footwork. Penix doesn't panic in the pocket. He doesn't get those happy feet, John, like we've talked about. It's the little things that translate to the NFL level where he can actually get away from defenders a little bit quicker than Bo Nix can. He's got better accuracy when he's outside of the pocket. So those little things. But that said, Alex, I want to ask you this. In a 3-year window, who do you want in Dynasty right now, Bo Nix or Michael Penix?
I want Michael Penix for sure. And I think the great thing about Bo Nix is we're going to find our answer this year, most likely. I think Peyton's going to get him on the field, and we're going to know if he's good or bad really, really quickly. Michael Penix, he's going to continue to have his value insulated over these next couple of years, and that's fine. I just think he's the better talent regardless. He was drafted two QBs ahead of Bo Nix, like regardless of the fact that he's got to wait. I do like the weapons more, and of course Denver's going to get some more weapons by the time this 3-year stretch is over. But is Nix going to have done enough to keep that job, and they're not already looking for something else? We don't know, but I think both could have either similar ceilings or Penix just easily crushes that. I think Penix's floor is way, way higher, and I like the offense that he's in. Guy, got to the national championship game and beat Bo Nix head-to-head twice in this past season. It's a team game, but at the same time, Penix showed that he's clutch in all of those situations. That's doesn't exactly show up on the stat sheet, but that's something that I look for in my quarterbacks. Who's going to be able to get it done when it matters and support all of these really good receivers. He had 3 guys he could support. So not only could he be good himself for fantasy, but I think he can support a Drake London and a Kyle Pitts and a Bijan Robinson.
Yep. This is why film matters, because you can't see that part of it on a stat sheet. But when you watch Penix take over a game like a true quarterback, it just doesn't translate to the stat sheet, right? So I love that you brought that up. Now, I want to go through here. We'll start with you, Alex. We'll keep it with you. Who's a quarterback that we don't have on the board here that you think there is a chance could show out and get a starting job in the next 2 to 3 seasons, like maybe almost like a Gardner Minshew type of guy that could provide some fantasy value you're willing to stash on your taxi squad right now?
All right. Thanks for letting me go first, because I'm going Spencer Rattler. And I think for me, I still believe this guy's got an NFL arm. He's shown that he has that talent. And it's also about Derek Carr. So from a fantasy perspective, Derek Carr is not getting it done. So I desperately want someone else there. The Saints, will see what they do. They're really stuck in their cap money situation. So Carr's going to get his shot this year. But, Carr's been relatively healthy. But if we can see a situation where Rattler gets in there and is having some chemistry with Olave, some of the guys there, I think he could actually get some run. We've seen them use another quarterback in Taysom Hill. They like having that. And Taysom Hill's actually, 33, 34. So they're not going to use Rattler in a gadget type situation, but they do like using that second quarterback. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Rattler get mixed in here and there and something happens to Derek Carr. Again, this guy can get the ball down deep in the field, and it's just a matter of accuracy. Can he handle the pressure? But let's see how he does in this preseason coming up next month. And I think this guy can have a shot if he gets the opportunity.
Well, I think for him to have an opportunity, he landed in the right spot. I believe John and I compared him to Derek Carr probably no less than maybe 350 times that week in Mobile. So
I believe in his ability to dump it off to Alvin Kamara or Kendra Miller.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Spencer Rattler's one of those guys where I think the skill set's there. I think the decision making's iffy, but with the right coaching, he's a guy where you can teach him to like, hey, dude, you got to go to that second read. Don't just assume that first one's going to be open. And he get that kind of coaching that will help. Dennis Allen's not the guy to give that to him. So I don't have a whole ton of hope for the time that Dennis Allen is still the head coach of that team, but we'll see here. I like the call, Alex. And then John, I think I know who you're going to mention. I think it's the same person as me. So let's go ahead and hear it.
I'm all about Jordan Travis as like a back end guy that you can get late. I picked him up in some like 5th rounds of rookie drafts or, after the rookie draft. And just because, obviously he's in a decent situation in New York where, there's not much in front of him, as far as like longevity or anything like that. We have to hope for health, and we have to hope that he gets back to health as quickly as possible. I don't know that he's ready day one or, week one or anything like that. So, this is probably more of a 2025 kind of take, but you're drafting him in the 5th round or possibly even later than that. So, I mean, who really cares, at that point. But you want to talk about somebody that can actually push the ball down the field. A 7.1% big time throw rate at 10.8 intended air yards per pass. Like, he's actually pushing the ball down the field and he's hitting those big passes while he does it. Like the completion totals are a little low. The interception totals are really low. So we love to see that. It's just, he's not perfect. He's not great. That's why we're drafting him in the 5th or later, but if anyone was going to come out of this, I really do think that it would be Travis.
Yeah, I like the Jordan Travis call. I think especially because a lot of why his draft stock dropped more than likely is because of that injury he suffered. I believe it was in the ACC championship. So, you could have seen this guy going in the 2nd or 3rd round had that. It's a Hendon Hooker syndrome, right? Hendon Hooker really probably could have been a Heisman finalist in 2023, had the knee injury week 11. Yeah, it kind of ended everything for him. And now we've got Hendon Hooker in, I believe, Detroit. I can't even remember at this point because he's so buried on depth charts. I could see this, though. I like Jordan Travis. I like the talent. But again, I think he's a guy, like you said, this is a 2025, 2026 guy. He will emerge and probably get an opportunity in New York. It's unlikely to come this year because he's still recovering from that injury. And if you're smart, which watching Hard Knocks, you got to really wonder about this Giants team and Joel Schoen, but we'll see here. I don't know. We'll see what this team does. We'll see if they mismanage the recovery, see if they get him some playing time. Mine is not who you picked, surprisingly. I thought it was going to be Michael Pratt from Tulane. That's who I thought you were going to go with.
I think it's because people, especially like the Campus to Canton crew, and don't get me wrong, I'm not throwing shade here. I love those boys, but they loved Michael Pratt, especially even before the Senior Bowl, before all that kind of stuff. And they were trying to push him up a little higher than I wanted him to be. And so I was always fighting against them. And I feel like I just kind of have like a bias at this point. And so it's really difficult for me to even act like I like him.
It's fine. Look, I don't think he's going to change the world, right? Like, this isn't like this like massive, like, you're getting in Tom Brady 2.0 because he went in the 6th or 7th round or whatever. Here's what I think of Michael Pratt. I think he's a guy who's reliable. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He doesn't throw a lot of interceptions. He doesn't make a lot of sexy throws either. His college ADOT was atrocious, but he started 4 seasons at Tulane. He started his freshman year. He took over halfway through the season. And at that age, to be able to manage a Division I program, and yes, okay, it's Tulane, right? Woohoo, the Green Wave, they're nobody. I understand this. But also, Michael Pratt's just a reliable vanilla quarterback. And we see those kinds of quarterbacks, Brock Purdy, rewarded in the NFL when the opportunity comes and they just don't make mistakes. And I think he's that type of quarterback who, given the opportunity in the next 2 seasons, I can see him starting and being the Brock Purdy type guy where it's like all of a sudden he's creeping into like the 2nd and 3rd round of super flex drafts. And then we're talking about, is this guy a QB1? Because he just gets the opportunity with talent around him. He's not going to win. He's not going to be a franchise quarterback by any means. But I think he's a guy who can provide stability at some point down the line for a franchise.
Yeah, and your question was about who's worth the taxi stash. And, hey, I was stashing Sean Clifford last year. It didn't work out. But, I think right now they still have Clifford ahead of Pratt on the depth chart. We'll see how the rest of this, offseason goes. But you're right. Totally loaded offense, weapons all around. So if something happens to Love, then, I mean, he could have a shot and just throw the ball to anybody. Somebody's over there.
Exactly. All right, guys, let's move on to a less exciting position group. We're going to go to the running backs. And this was kind of a Mr. Bean running back here. By Mr. Bean, I mean, it's a show I would never watch because it is so absolutely freaking boring. Like, if you're going to give me a British comedy, give me Kids in the Hall, not Mr. Bean, please. So let's look
Can I just ask, who is Blake Corum?
Oh, yeah. Thanks for pointing that out, John. I appreciate that. Somebody in our graphics department is about to get fired. I hope you're happy. All right, guys. So we're going to run through running backs here. This will be a really quick one. I feel like these are the only 4 guys really worth talking about for redraft right now. And in Dynasty, these are the only 4 guys really worth looking at acquiring in any real sense. Jonathan Brooks, RB14, Trey Benson, RB16, Blake Corum at RB30, and Marshawn Lloyd in Green Bay at RB34. So, John, I want to ask you first. Out of these 4 running backs, who finishes as the RB1 in this group?
Well, let me tell you, I honestly love all 4 of these guys, and I actually have a couple guys that I want to add to the list later on.
Me too.
But yeah, who's going to finish first? I think it's going to be Brooks. I know people are worried about the ACL and all that kind of stuff, but it was an early ACL tear. It was a clean ACL tear. It was just the ACL. Wasn't MCL, PCL, all that kind of good stuff. He got surgery right away. They have said from the get-go that he was on pace for training camp, to be 100% for training camp, not for week 1, not for anything like. Even if he's not, if he's, if they hold him back and don't let him start out hot like they did with Breece Hall last year, like that kind of thing, he's still going to finish extremely high. And, everyone else on this list is probably either going to be mixed with someone else as far as like a mixed backfield, or they're waiting for an injury to get on there. So, even if Jonathan Brooks has to wait a few weeks for him to actually get on there and do his thing, I don't think that's really going to hinder him as far as being the RB1 in this class. I mean, and he's the RB1 talent-wise, so it's just a matter of when he gets on the field and obviously, what the Panthers do. But he's, as far as I'm concerned, he's going to have a full workload, as quickly as possible, and that's going to lead to a lot of fantasy points.
All right. I do like that. I do like Jonathan Brooks, so I'm okay with this. Alex, I'm going to ask you, do you agree with John here on Jonathan Brooks, or is it one of the other 4?
Yeah, so who's going to finish the RB1 of the class for 2024? I would still say Jonathan Brooks because, right now Benson does have to overcome the backfield he's in with Connor. And, James Conner, I think he's been a pro running back for so long. This guy, I just expect him to be there. I do expect him to miss some games. He missed some games every single season that he's been in the league. But I just don't see this team having any need to rush Benson. The way that the Carolina Panthers are making their offense right now is, they're making it as if they have a quarterback that needs a little bit of help. Okay, so they've put hundreds of millions into the offensive line. They get a second-round running back who they believe in, and they're going to feed those guys. Chuba Hubbard was getting fed last year. He can still run the rock. So they didn't even get rid of Miles Sanders. Maybe that was to happen, but he's recovering from a little bit of an injury at the moment. But I think these guys' identity this year, as much as you want to say about Dave Canales fixing the quarterbacks, he's trying to fix the offense and make sure that they can get points on the board. They could barely score this past season, and they're just going to run the ball, get that time of possession game in their control so that, it's really only maybe 20 passes Bryce Young per game is going to have to be asked to make, something like that. And if he does, they have weapons, but I feel like the weapons are just to distract for the running game, so to keep that running game open. So Jonathan Brooks, whenever he's healthy and ready to go, I think he's getting a big workload. That's the main thing. It's like, even if Benson or these other guys are getting that workload, I think Brooks is also getting that workload. And for me, it would really be Corum is probably the number 2 guy I would like there, just because I think with the Rams, we just haven't seen a repeat of a number 1 RB since Todd Gurley.
Right. I still, though, they haven't had a running back as good as Kyren Williams since.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not saying Kyren Williams is Todd Gurley at all. I'm just saying he's probably the best running back they've had since. That said, I'm okay with that on Blake Corum, and I completely agree with you guys on Jonathan Brooks. But I'm going to pivot here. I'm going to say I think it's going to be Marshawn Lloyd as the number 2. I think that he slides into that role in Green Bay as the Aaron Jones type back. The guy can catch passes. It's the whole reason he went to Mobile and what he showed off at the combine in his pro day, because I think he had 50 targets total at USC over his career. So they just didn't use him. But I think what people are discounting is another thing he showed off over the combine, pro days, and at the Senior Bowl was how good he is in short yardage and goal line situations. Again, it's not something USC used him for much. He, at times in college, looked inefficient at the goal line. He didn't at the Senior Bowl, and that was against top-level talent. What if, guys, A.J. Dillon was horribly inefficient last year? What if Marshawn Lloyd becomes the bell cow back in Green Bay? What if the two-back system that they've run before with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon or whoever else they had becomes Marshawn Lloyd?
I don't even think it's much of a what if. I just believe it. I really think it's going to happen sooner rather than later. I have 40% Marshawn Lloyd in my dynasty leagues, and honestly, I wish it was even higher. But I can't take him in every single league. But it was honestly one of the few. It was one of the few players that I just felt like his ADP made no sense in rookie drafts for whatever reason. Like and you can see it here. He's RB34, in Fantasy Pros, and you have Trey Benson RB16. I don't think that Trey Benson and Marshawn Lloyd are all that different talent-wise and even situation-wise. You're talking about good offenses. They have another running back they have to deal with. They're probably going to touch the field even without an injury, like this and this and that. Why are we skipping 18 spots before we actually get to Marshawn Lloyd? I don't get it. So I drafted him early and often, and it was just one of my favorite players to take. So I love the take. I still think that Jonathan Brooks is going to be the RB1 in the class, but if Marshawn Lloyd gets that job earlier than expected, or if Josh Jacobs is who he was last year, maybe it will be Lloyd.
Yeah, I don't even count Josh Jacobs.
I know.
He's I can't see Jacobs. He sucked last season. And he missed camp, contract dispute, all of that, whatever. But he just didn't look like himself. And I don't think that was a symptom of everything else. I think that's a symptom of he's not a guy who was built to be even a 5-year back. The guy's seen his ups and he's on his backside now. This is going to be very similar to Dalvin Cook going to the Jets last season. By week 3, week 4, you'd be like, are they going to give him the ball, or is he still on the team? Did I miss a release? Yeah. Alex, what do you think about Marshawn Lloyd?
So wait, are we saving our rookies that are going to outperform ADP, or
Next? We're almost there.
All right,
I will let you go first.
That's how I feel about Marshawn Lloyd. But man. Look, Marshawn Lloyd, he's in a spot where, look, a lot of that's true. I do think they're going to give Josh Jacobs plenty of run. Former first rounder. NFL teams value that a lot more than even we do. And they did give him a contract, which they also are going to value. Good team. Guy can fall into the end zone here and there. And absolutely, A.J. Dillon got his opportunity with an injured Aaron Jones. Couldn't do anything with it. So the reason I like Marshawn Lloyd is I think he's getting usage even while Josh Jacobs is playing starting week 1, because Marshawn Lloyd, of all of the running backs, he had the highest yards per reception amongst the running back class at 13.31. And for me, I felt like this guy can catch. Again, like you said, wasn't always asked to do that. Caleb Williams loves to air it out, but we see the skill set is there for Marshawn Lloyd. And, at running back 34, I've got him 28 for my rankings, but I have it like the ceiling for him being up to RB14. So I'm definitely high on Marshawn Lloyd here.
Yeah, I love that. All right, guys, let's get to the guys who aren't on this list that we think are going to surprise some people. Alex, let's start with you.
All right. So these rookie running backs, it's really just more about opportunity than anything. So I could see quite a few guys really popping up if just anything happens and breaks the right way, right? So,
sure.
For guys that are not on this list, there's a lot of running backs, everyone's down on the class in general. So for me, I actually like the idea of Ray Davis. I like a running back that's a part of a good offense. And it seems like he's already kind of in the spot to be the RB2. It feels like there's a situation where James Cook could be the pass catching back and Ray Davis could be that, actually the goal line back. The only thing is the way I play Dynasty is I kind of hate running backs that are connected to rushing quarterbacks. So it's, a little bit knocks that upside, but still coming in as a rookie, he's a little bit older, so they're just going to run this guy into the ground early and try to get what they can, because they did try another old guy who was just dust, like Dalvin Cook. I believe Fournette was on this team. They couldn't get anything out of him, and they've been struggling to find that RB2 that they can get some usage out of. So the real knock is, I don't know what the passing work is going to be like for him, but I could see absolutely getting some goal line work. And if there is an injury, I think there's just not much other competition there. I believe it's Frank Gore Jr.
Yeah.
I think he could have a great opportunity.
So, Alex, you took my guy, but I'm great with it. I'm glad you did, because I'm glad that more people are on Ray Davis. And I like what you said about he's going to get a lot of that short yardage work. And I get what you're saying. I usually stay away from running backs attached to a mobile quarterback as well. However, given what we've heard out of Buffalo for now 3 straight seasons, we want Josh Allen throwing his body around less. We want him running the ball less. We want him less in these short yardage situations. They keep trying to find the guy to do it. They couldn't. Damian Harris couldn't do it, right? James Cook can't do it, but they know James Cook can't do it. I think this is a situation where we see Ray Davis become Jamal Williams in Detroit with DeAndre Swift. Now, I don't think he's going to have that kind of touchdown volume, but Ray Davis could easily fall into like 10 or 11 touchdowns this year. And it wouldn't be that hard in this Buffalo offense where they're getting down there, and instead of Josh Allen doing something stupid at the goal line or some trick play, or they're trying to throw it to Dawson Knox in the corner, let's give the ball to the big bowling ball dude, Ray Davis. Let him bowl it in, touchdown, boom. We move on with our day. John, who's your guy?
All right, I'm so surprised that I'm getting to talk about this player, because I'm sitting here with 2 guys that were at the Denver live draft, and I'm taking Audric Estime. I'm the one taking Audric Estime from Tampa, Florida. I'm like, come on now. But I've been the Estime guy forever, for the longest time. And I will be 100% honest. When I first drafted him in a Campus to Canton league, I drafted him because I saw a picture of him flexing his muscles when he was a senior in high school. And I was like, holy crap, I have to have this guy on my squad. Had nothing to do with his stats, had nothing to do with Beth, had nothing to do with anything. I saw him flexing and I said, I want Audric Estime. And I got
helmet scouting, not flex scouting.
That's right. Yeah, it's a whole new thing. But so many people gave me crap, like, oh, he's buried behind Logan Diggs and Chris Tyree and this and that. He's never going to be a thing. Guess what? He was a thing. Not only was he a thing, he was the most productive P5 running back in this class. And yet, for whatever reason, well, I won't even say for whatever reason, he goes out and he runs a slow 40 time, and all of a sudden, everyone just falls out of love with them. The NFL fell out of love with them. Dynasty people content creators fell out of love with them. We had people saying he was their RB3, RB2, RB1, and then all of a sudden he goes out and he runs a 4.7 40, and everyone's like, nope, he's not even on my draft board anymore. And I just don't get it. There's opportunity in Denver. Javonte Williams has not been healthy, has not been the player that he once was. And they're possibly, I mean, it sounds fake, but I mean, they're possibly talking about cutting him not making the roster, whatever. I don't necessarily believe that, but just the fact that there's talks about that kind of stuff means that there's opportunity for Audric Estime to step up and take over that lead back role. The coaches have talked about him being at least the first and second down guy, but he's a receiving back too. And he's a huge receiving back with burst. He had the 3rd highest burst score in the class. So yes, he might be slow when it's all said and done, but he can get through a line, and that's all we truly care about. I don't care if he goes and runs 80 yards for a touchdown. I would love for that to happen, but not every player is going to be Breece Hall. So give me Audric Estime. He's another player that I just have a ridiculous amount of, and it's because I truly believe in the player. I just think even if he's technically buried, it doesn't mean he's always going to be buried.
No, I love it.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be buried. Look, Javonte Williams is someone who lives here. Not that I know anything special. I talked to him yesterday. He says he's going to get cut, so we're good. No, but honestly, there are some concerns. I mean, yeah, now he's a full year removed from that injury, year plus removed, so maybe he's going to be a little bit fresher. But I don't know that Sean Payton loves him, and that's probably the kiss of death in any Sean Payton regime, right? He loved Jaleel McLaughlin. He's going to get work whether we like it or not. I know he's tiny frame, so he's not going to get a lot of rushing opportunity. But he slots well into the passing attack. He's like Alvin Kamara, but like a little mini, this size Alvin Kamara, right? Basically. Estime, I think, will get a lot of that short yardage and that power work. I don't care that he's not fast. Like you said, John, we're not looking for the dude to run 80 yards, but you know who else wasn't fast? Emmitt Smith really wasn't that fast. Jerome Bettis wasn't that fast.
I mean, every player earns their points a different way, and that's what's great about the NFL, and that's what's great about fantasy is you can grab that guy that is the Alvin Kamara, he just catches the ball, this and that, or you can grab the guy that's object estimated that can bulldoze 20 people and score a bunch of touchdowns and do all that kind of stuff.
Well, we're in an era enamored with speed, and I get it because you've got guys like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and then Devon Achane, and then you throw Jalen Wright and Malik Washington into that Miami offense. And it's like, my God, you're like the 4x100 relay team, right? Like that's how it feels. And they've got them all lining up in this offense. But there's something to some of these other plotting backs. I mean, Jamal Williams isn't fast, and that dude led the league in touchdowns 2 years ago. So I really like this object estimate call. Now, we're getting a little long on time here, guys, so I want to get into wide receivers. This is an interesting one. I don't really want to talk about the top 3 guys because what is there to talk about? Malik Neighbors is a New York Giant, so he might as well be dead. Josh Rosen of wide receivers at this point. I'm kidding. Marvin Harrison, Odunze, we know what these guys are going to be likely at the NFL level. I want to talk more about these back 4 here. We've got Xavier Worthy in Kansas City as the wide receiver 30 right now. Lad McConkey of the Chargers, wide receiver 32. Brian Thomas in Jacksonville at wide receiver 34. And Keon Coleman in Buffalo at wide receiver 40. John, out of these 4 guys, who finishes last in this group?
Ooh, last. That's tough. I'm going to go with McConkey. I think he's a slot only receiver. People want to push him into or like act like he's going to be something that he was never in college just because there's opportunity in Los Angeles. But he's a slot only wide receiver. He doesn't play on the outside. We've talked about how we were at the Senior Bowl. We were watching these practices happen, and he was an amazing slot player at the Senior Bowl. And then he tried to beat press coverage, and he could not get off the line of scrimmage. He just couldn't do it.
He did it on Wednesday.
I don't know, man. He
got a lot better at it. He took some coaching direction from, and I want to point this out, Mike Tomlin.
Ooh.
We watched Tomlin out on the field.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, we're standing right next to him.
And actually, I do believe it was our other co-host who is not here, the one and only Herms, C.H. Herms. That was the day that he and I moved over to the press side, and we sat and we watched the 3-cone drill. We watched McConkey go through it, and we watched him talk to Mike Tomlin. Herms couldn't get his eyes off Mike Tomlin as a Steelers fan.
Oh, yeah.
And I couldn't either because I'm a low-key Steelers fan. But he took that direction, right? And then on Wednesday and Thursday, he was considerably better against that press coverage on the outside and man. Was it phenomenal? No. But the fact that he made that adjustment from Tuesday to Wednesday, I think that's kind of a big deal. That said, I don't think he's going to finish first in this group. I don't think he's going to finish last. I hear what you're saying.
They all have a good opportunity ahead of them, and that's the thing. So it's really difficult to say who's going to be last, and it's probably nitpicking more than anything else. I'm not necessarily saying he's going to be terrible. I'm just saying I look at it, I mean, Keon Coleman legit has the opportunity to be the wide receiver 1. Now, I don't think he's going to be the receiving option 1. I think that's going to be Kincaid. But the wide receiver 1 on that team, he's the outside, the big play threat, all that kind of stuff. Same thing with Brian Thomas Jr., Xavier Worthy is a freaking stud, and he has Patrick Mahomes throwing it to him. So when you give me for those 4 options, I'm going to say Lad McConkey, the slot guy that, is going to, like, we always want to say, oh, well, Josh Palmer sucks, blah, blah, blah. And that's true. But that doesn't necessarily mean he's not going to catch 700 yards or whatever he's going to go out there and do. And so we can't just say, oh, well, Lad McConkey is going to have 1,000 yards just because there's no one else that we like there.
Well, no, I don't think McConkey's going to have 1,000 yards. At all. And kind of for me, his positive is also his negative, where he's in this crappy offense with no other real weapons. That's a positive. But then also he's in this crappy offense with no other weapons. So it's like double-edged sword, right? This is where I'm going to have a different, I'm not going to say hot, because I don't think it's a hot take, but a different take from a lot of people out of this group of 4 wide receivers. I think Xavier Worthy finishes last. And let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. Because every year it's the same thing now. Since Tyreek Hill, we bring a fast wide receiver into that Chiefs offense, and we're like, oh, they're going to be phenomenal. And wide receiver 30 isn't exceptional. But you guys, Rashee Rice walked out of all that offseason trouble completely unscathed. And everything else we've heard about him is he's a good kid. He got in his head over the summer. He needed to get quiet. Yeah, he screwed up. He did some dumb stuff, but overall, he's a good kid. He'll get his things right. And I know John's laughing, but Hollywood Brown.
Yeah, he's a great kid. He's got a great head on his shoulder. He's definitely not an idiot. No.
Hey, you know what? You wouldn't call me. I mean, I am an idiot, but I'm a bad example. Anyway. But here's my point.
But
okay?
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying with the fast wide receivers and everything, but I mean, none of them, McCole Hardman, MVS, none of these players have been remotely close to touching or sniffing the talent level of Xavier Worthy. I get what you're saying, but he is so much better. People were anointing
Sky Moore 2 years ago.
Not me, not Beth.
I know not you, John. I know not you, but other people were. Okay, but my ultimate reasoning is I think Xavier Worthy is going to be good in this offense. I don't think they need him to be the wide receiver one in this offense year one. I think that they're going to split it up between Rashee Rice, Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy. Travis Kelce still exists, y'all. He is still the wide receiver one in this offense. I just don't know that there's going to be enough of volume available for Xavier Worthy to live up to a wide receiver 30 tag this year. I think he's a wide receiver 4 flex in his rookie season. He creeps up a little bit later. But out of this group of 4, I think McConkey has more opportunity, Thomas has more opportunity, and Keon Coleman is going to have more opportunity. Alex, am I crazy?
Well, I've got Worthy's my sleeper, spoiler alert. But if I had to pick just to go a little different direction, I would pick Coleman as potentially falling as the last, and not just because he's last in the ADP here. I was actually factoring in some of the cold weather games. Guys coming out of Florida. It's obviously not just all about that, but we've seen a Tyreek Hill disappear in that Kansas City Chiefs game, and that's Tyreek. You know, Josh Allen's used to it. Is the rest of the team used to it? I don't know. Curtis Samuel's coming out of Washington, so maybe. But for Coleman, he's still learning. I don't think he was as polished as a McConkey. McConkey has a pass-first quarterback, whereas Coleman, they're still going to be rushing. So what is the target volume really going to be for Coleman? Still think there's some opportunity, but, I think that could actually be the last person there. And, I do just want to lean into what the Chiefs are doing. This year it's one thing. Long-term, I'm definitely in on Worthy, though.
Yep. Oh, same. And I've been snatching him up late second, early third round drafts. If I have to take him at the beginning of the first round or the end of the first round, I'd be fine with that too. Zero issue.
To be fair to Keon Coleman, as far as the cold weather games, he did play 2 years at Michigan State. So I don't think he is exactly, never seen snow or anything like that.
Yeah, but some of that he was playing basketball indoors.
That is true.
All right, John, I want to ask you, wide receiver not on this list that you think makes an impact in 2024 in fantasy?
All right. So I think I'm trying to think who's not on the list. I mean, maybe I'm a Denver homer, but Troy Franklin is the easiest one to go to because first I threw out Audric Estime, now I'm throwing out Franklin, but I still don't really understand his fall. Kind of like what I was saying with Estime earlier. It's just he might not be he might not be a Malik Neighbors, he might not be an MHJ, but man, he put up some solid stats. He was I want to say he was the wide receiver 7 in PPR points or fantasy points last year in college fantasy football. And I mean, yeah, that doesn't necessarily matter for NFL purposes and all that kind of stuff. But I'll tell you what, I've done the research. Fantasy points begat fantasy points, So like if you can do it in college, you can do it in the NFL. And he has speed, he has burst, he has route running. He is not this like one trick pony or anything like that. He was one of the earliest 4th round picks that you can be. So yes, he is a 4th round pick, but he wasn't like the end of the round or anything like that. Right. I think he fell because people got into their heads, like coaches got in their heads, like, oh, he ran a zigzag route on his gauntlet drill and stuff. But if that had never happened, we would just be sitting here going like, oh, he was drafted in the end of the second, just like everyone expected. There was talks of him going in the late first, like well before the combine. Yeah. And then he goes to the combine. He did everything else well. He just did that gauntlet drill. And then all of a sudden, because of one thing, he slipped. So I really think that if somebody was going to stand out, it's got to be Franklin for me.
Yeah, I love that. I'm a big Troy Franklin fan because he's in Denver and please God do well. But also, I really like the situation for him. And I think it's good for not just for Troy Franklin, but for Bo Nix because you give him a receiver he's comfortable with. You're going to start him week 1, right? So I think it's good for both. And I agree. Right now, he's sitting at wide receiver 59 in Fantasy Pros expert consensus rankings for Dynasty. So I think that's insane. Alex, who's a guy that's not on this list here to your left that you think is going to exceed expectations and is worth a grab?
Yeah, good call on that last one. High PFF grade and everything. I'm going to go with, I feel like I'm cheating. I'm going to go with Ricky Pearsall. Ricky Pearsall, first round pick, great offense that he's jumping into with Shanahan and crew. And really, I've gotten past thinking Ayuk's going to be on a different team. I think he will be on the 49ers. These guys are going to go for a re-roll, try to get that Super Bowl. And still, I find myself thinking, look, Pearsall's going to get an opportunity, for the Scott Fish. He's probably going to be doing some kick returning, some special teams guys. But I can see, looking at some of the interviews Shanahan's done, he really loves the versatility that he brings to the table, can go on the outside, inside, wherever they really need him. Shanahan believes Pearsall can deliver. And if there is a trade to Ayuk or Debo sees another injury because he's doing some running back type stuff, I can see Pearsall getting some work. He might even be the wide receiver 3 already. And I just think there's people that have a lot of belief in this offense. So if by the end of this season, we know Ayuk's out the door, people are going to be all over Ricky Pearsall. And I mean, yeah, he's got that highlight catch, but he definitely can do a little bit more than that. And Pearsall had the second fastest 3-cone in the combine of the people that participated. Guy can move in that short area of the field, so he's got some good bursts and hands. So I really like what he can bring to the table.
I mean, you're not going to get an argument from me on Ricky Pearsall. I love the kid. Think he's phenomenal. Think he's a phenomenal talent, and I think that this is a great landing spot for him. Wide receiver 45 right now. I get it. The depth in San Francisco. You've got Christian McCaffrey, Ayuk, you've got Debo, you've got Kittle. However, I think we're going to see him start to kind of creep up. And if Debo gets hurt, George Kittle gets hurt, Brandon Ayuk misses some time, he could easily slot into 4, 5, 6 targets a game. We know the kind of receiver he is. He can suck those targets in like a vacuum. So who knows? He could get some fantasy relevance. My guy, I like Javon Baker, guys. I really like Javon Baker. I like Javon Baker because if you look at this New England offense, they don't have jack in that receiving core that's really worth anything. Javon Baker's fast. He's a really solid, accurate route runner. He's got good hands. This isn't the Bill Belichick offense anymore. And who the hell else are they going to throw it to? It's going to be Javon Baker and Jalen Polk and a little bit of Hunter Henry. Maybe some Antonio Gibson peppered in there. I've been taking some stabs at him in some drafts lately. What do you guys think of Javon Baker, Alex?
Yeah, and I'm not big on DeMario Douglas as far as just long-term. Drake May, I always love the quarterbacks that come in with the rookie receiver. They get that bond and all the early rookie camps. Even for the next session of training camp, rookies have to be there a week early. They get that extra rapport with those guys. So I'm good with Baker. I would go Polk. I mean, he's not on this list either. So I do like what he was doing with Penix over there in Washington. I think it'd be great for both those guys. They'll both probably be on the field at the same time. And, from everything Baker wants us to believe, he's got that dog in him. He's out there barking online. Let's see what it's like on the field. But I could see that hitting. I'm going on Polk's side. So we'll see how that turns out.
I love it. All right, guys, we're done with wide receivers. We're going to go to, this is the easiest one because there's really only 2 relevant guys right now. There's some deeper names, but at the tight end position, we've got Brock Bowers. We've got Ben Sinnott out of Kansas State. Alex, I want to ask you about the Bowers situation because they got Michael Mayer last year. He was supposed to be the tight end 1 in that class. It ended up obviously not being even remotely close to true. So then they go out and they get Brock Bowers. He's slotted in at tight end 6. And guys, I have an issue with this ranking. Alex, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, so I told you guys pre-show I had to redo a little bit of my rankings, and I was actually struggling with the Brock Bowers ranking because the, right now the tight ends are looking pretty good in my some of the other guys around him. So for me, I'm like, why just force him up there just because he's supposed to be some phenom prospect when we've got a lot of other good guys that are, for me, the way I on my channel like to talk about tight ends, you got to be a top 2 target in your offense. Now, Devontae Adams, I've always viewed him as a black hole of targets, even before he actually went to the black hole with the Raiders. He's getting all the targets, and then he's getting the next set of targets that there is, and then there's Jacoby Myers getting his. So for Bowers, I feel like it might be a little bit of a learning year. And I heard, sorry, I wish I could source it, but I did hear they plan to still use Mayer. Mayer's not out of the picture. And he's a good player, and it wasn't just mentioned as a blocker. When it actually comes down to it, I can see him getting a lot of blocking work, and maybe you let Bowers roam free. But I was really struggling with the Bowers ranking, and I'm kind of just hoping he can, again, one of the greatest college resumes that we've seen. So I'm leaning into that, but you've got a Laporta, a McBride, a Kincaid, even Pitts. Maybe when Hawkinson returns, Andrews, Ingram. These are guys who are number 2 targets in their offense. I didn't mention Kelsey. The guy is probably the GOAT. Even Jake Ferguson. Guys, if you didn't know, Jake Ferguson is the number 2 target in the number 1 passing offense for multiple consecutive years in a row. I mean, he could outscore Brock Bowers, just if you didn't know. So there's just a lot of names. I'm not necessarily ranking them dynasty-wise ahead of him, but it's really tough for me to be like, I'm just going to anoint this guy as the number 1 or number 2 tight end. There's just so many guys to where I'm good with it. It's more just an age thing, to be honest.
Well,
you want them on your team.
So shout out to the dude who unfollowed me and blocked me on Twitter because I didn't have Brock Bowers in my top 5 dynasty tight ends. There's a finger I could hold up to show you. This is a family show, so I will not, sir. But
Thumbs
just
up?
let me. Yeah, it's this one.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, cool.
Thumbs down. Thumbs down.
So here's the thing. I love tight ends. It's my favorite position because I love the mentality. I love the grind mentality. Like you're half hog, half wide receiver, right? Like that's kind of what these guys are. Like look at Travis Kelce. That dude could play offensive line. Size-wise, yeah, dude, just like, I don't know, feed him a couple extra portions of steak and like 6 eggs every morning, and that dude's built like an offensive lineman, okay? Bowers is in a situation where 1, he's now behind Mike Mayer. 2, he is in an offense with Aiden O'Connell. And what I take issue with the franchise as a whole, and because we're playing Dynasty, is that until Mark Davis relinquishes control of running that team, I don't know that this Vegas offense is going to be worth much. Fantasy or real life. I have a hard time with the franchise because when they're making stupid decisions like holding on to Aiden O'Connell instead of drafting a quarterback, no, you didn't need Brock Bowers. You had Mike Mayer. Like there's just those kinds of things make me think that this franchise isn't going to put it together. And until Bowers can get out of Vegas, they get a new head coach or they bring in a GM who's not Mark Davis, I have an issue with this. I don't think Bowers is going to live up to his potential. Maybe that's too big-brained, but for me, if we're talking 3-year windows, I don't see a 3-year window where Bowers is even a top 10 tight end right now.
Yeah, and it's going to depend on if they want to force the issue, because let's say we watched the 3-year window for Pitts, right? It was a coaching thing. We think the talent's there. At the same time, the offense wasn't there regardless. And I don't think the Raiders offense is there. And, I'm not trying to go back to other positions, but, like with the Denver team, the offense, it's going to be tough for those running backs to thrive. And a lot of times with these tight ends, I need a guy who's just going to get a touchdown. Sometimes a Jonnu Smith getting 1 touchdown is going to end up just being better than Brock Bowers. No one's going to start Jonnu and they'll start Bowers and be sad. But that's just how it goes. And this offense, again, I think it's going to run through Adams through the last part of his career. And
Zamir White.
QB play. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. John, what do you think about Brock Bowers? I mean, at tight end 6, would you buy him at tight end 6?
Yeah, I would. I'm all over that price. I get what you're saying, and I don't love, like people always say, "Oh, you got to go talent over situation," and it's so true. Within tiers, I think we can look at situation in a tier and then make determinations based on that. Now, Brock Bowers is in a tier of his own as far as this class, so it's not like I'm going to say, "Oh, well, bump this guy ahead of him because of the situation." So Brock Bowers is still the tight end 1 in the class, and as far as I'm concerned, by quite a large margin. But then, of course, we can't say that they have proven talent there or anything like that as far as the quarterbacks. We can probably say that he's the second receiving option on the team, though. I think that's pretty easy. I mean, I like Michael Mayer, and I like Jacoby Myers, but I don't think it's that crazy to think that this guy that is literally the best tight end prospect that I've ever seen, and I've been scouting them for since 2010 is the first time in Beth. So I got for 14, 15 years here, I've been looking at tight ends, and he's by far the best that I've seen, even better than Kyle Pitts and yada yada yada. So I think that situations can change quickly. So even if it ends up being, okay, he's tight end 6 this year, but then all of a sudden they get a quarterback upgrade next year or whatever it may be, bam, all of a sudden he's tight end 1, but you got him at tight end 6 prices. And, so I'm trying to get him now. I've done it in rookie drafts. I've traded back into the first to get him. And I've done it. I was actually trying to get him in Scott Fishbowl. It didn't work out, but, I love Bowers to death. I kind of wanted to see where he was going to go, if the NFL was going to believe in him. The Raiders obviously believe in him. So he's going to be on the field. Yeah. And Alex was saying how, that Michael Mayer is going to be on the field too. That's true, but it's going to be 12. It's going to be 12 personnel, 2 tight end sets. So it's not going to hurt either one. They can both be options in this. It's going to hurt more of your Jacoby Myers and players like that aren't going to be on the field in those 2 tight end sets.
Yeah, man, I absolutely agree with the tier thing. I've got a tier 4, to be honest. So Bowers is one of my top 4 tight ends that I got going forward, and long term, I'm definitely all in on the situation because of the Devontae Adams age. So 2024, to me, that's one thing. But yeah, I don't know how much longer Adams has. That's really why I'm thinking that he's definitely going to be the top 2 option and probably top 1, depending on how long Myers is there. Myers won't ever be ahead of him, I don't think. I know someone in the chat thinks so, Brad, but I can see Bowers is stepping right in there.
Well, things are a little bit different in Australia, so I don't know. It's all right, Brad. It's all right. We can all have differing opinions. That's what makes this space so great. Guys, we're going to wrap it up here. So first of all, I want to thank you, John, as always, for being my ride or die here on the Dynasty. That's you. Normally, Matt Chester's here. He's in New Orleans running the live draft for Scott Fishbowl right now. We were going to try and broadcast that live, but as it turns out, the Wi-Fi connection where they're at kind of sucks. Probably for the best, so they can all focus on that and not hang out with us. We're too beautiful, right? Too distracting. They'd forget to take their picks. They'd all get kicked out. That's totally not true. But just some last-minute notes, guys, before we get out of here. Remind you, we will be back on Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern for the Monday draft, mock draft Monday. So many words. OptimusFantasy.com is live and very exciting, guys. So please head on over. We've got live content right now, articles that will lead you back to our YouTube page. It'll send you off to our Spotify and our podcast channels. And the pre-sale for our GOAT Premium package is there. Go ahead and sign up. It's going to get you signed up for our newsletter, other updates. We're looking very much forward to letting the world see Beth, John, right? You're muted.
Yeah, I couldn't find my mouse. I'm on 3 screens, and I was like, where's the mouse?
Oh, no.
But yeah, I'm excited to show off Beth to a new crowd and, a new world and all of that. I'm excited about that. Do I get all these cool tools and stuff too, or do I have to pay for it as well?
No, you're the creator. It's fine.
Oh, sweet.
You get it. All right, Alex, I want to say thank you so much for coming on with us. It's been a blast. Hopefully you will not be a stranger to the channel. Guys, make sure you go follow Alex at Dynasty FKey on Twitter. Check out his Dynasty Football Key on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to his channel. If you're not watching it there right now, head on over there when the show's over. Alex, is there anything else you want to say to our audience before we get out of here?
No, you covered it. Thanks, Nate, John, for having me on. Really appreciate it. And looking forward to the season. Looking forward to seeing you guys at the Fantasy Football Expo in Canton next month. It's going to be a lot of fun. I signed up for the beanbag toss tournament. Not the dodgeball or whatever, just coming off the ACL repair. So doing good. We'll have some fun out there, man. And if anyone can make it, I believe in the description of this show, there's the link to the website. I think you can still get some tickets. Guys might even be able to get some guest tickets. Who knows? Looking forward to seeing you guys there, meeting you again in person, Nate, and you too, John. And thanks for having me on. Again, catch me on Dynasty Football Key on YouTube or Dynasty F Key on Twitter.
Yep, awesome. And thanks for bringing up the Expo. I did want to just real quick, guys, we are going to have a booth this year at the Fantasy Football Expo. I will be speaking on the redraft strategies panel. Matt Chester is going to be speaking on the dynasty strategies panel. And Eric Romoff will be speaking for the Underdog DFS panel on Sunday. We're really thrilled. And my beautiful, wonderful wife, Jennifer, who is a massive part of Optimus, she will be drafting at the Queen's Classic on Saturday, so look out for her. We're going to have content that whole weekend, and we're going to be giving away some tickets to the Expo here in the next week or two. So look out for that for the Sunday Expo. Sorry, guys, we don't have VIP tickets. I wish, but we do have actual Expo tickets for Sunday, so check those out. Make sure you head on over to optimusfantasy.com. Check us out on Twitter at optimusfantasy, link.tree.com/optimusfantasy for all of our other social links. We will see you next week.